Here's Carolyn Jarvis.
The Malaysian state of Sarawak is touted in tourism ads as paradise, but its lush tropical rainforest is disappearing at an astonishing rate. The man some people blame for the destruction is the state's chief minister, who's also accused of lining his pockets with the profits of that deforestation. Now some allege his money has made its way into Canada. The connection? His daughter, who lives in Ottawa and heads up a lucrative real estate firm. Sean O'Shea investigates the alleged money trail between a Malaysian father, his Canadian daughter, and their family trees.
This is one of the world's most important rainforests.
A single square mile of forest in Sarawak, contains more biodiversity than all of North America.
That rainforest is here in Sarawak, Malaysia's largest state. But it's disappearing, being chopped down for profit.
What has happened in Sarawak and in Borneo is a catastrophe, an environmental and human catastrophe. The entire forest in that country has been mowed down.
The liquidation of tropical forests on an unprecedented scale. The effect on the peoples there was profound and remains so.
Without any question, the most egregious deforestation on Earth.
This is Claire Rucastle Brown. She's been fighting the deforestation, and the man, she says, is behind the destruction.
The plans that the Chief Minister Taib Mahmood has for that area is to continue with that devastation and to turn the whole area into a vast palm oil plantation, which will just cement the disaster.
And according to Claire, Sarawak's chief minister is lining his pockets with money from the felled forest.
He's a kleptocrat, I think is the best way to describe him. That means he's somebody that has used his power to rob his people and to take as much money as he can from the state, which he has control over.
Claire says Taib isn't the only one getting rich. She's been tracking the proceeds from the timber industry.
I have been able to see that most of the companies that have received the lands have been companies owned by his siblings and his children and political allies that he needs to keep sweet, mainly his own family.
And part of that family tree leads right to Canada's capital. But to explain that connection, we need to start back in Sarawak with the man who runs the state. Chief Minister Taib Mahmood and the string of his family's companies are worth billions. Billions that Claire says were amassed because of this.
Taib has made it very clear he wants to log the whole rainforest. There is no limit to his greed. He wants to log it. He wants to make as much money of it. Taib wants to rule the state of Sarawak like his personal fiefdom.
That's Lukas Straumann. He's an environmentalist. Claire and Lukas are working together with one goal in mind, ending this. And stopping the man they say is behind it. We went to London to meet up with Claire and Lukas. Claire lives here now, but she grew up in Sarawak.
I feel I have a sense of responsibility. Not many people I know of have heard of Sarawak.
That responsibility, she feels, is for the forest and the people who live there. These are those people, a tribe called the Penan, one of the last nomadic tribes in the world.
What we do know is that a number of Penan natives who led the struggle against deforestation to protect the forest, they disappeared or were killed.
This man protested the destruction of the rainforest. He lives in Canada now. We can't say where or show his identity because he fears for his safety.
What are you afraid of?
I'm more afraid of being unable to get back home.
Do you believe that you're still at risk?
I still feel at risk because of my continuing involvement in this campaign. They came quietly. They lied to us what they were doing. They didn't tell us the truth.
The truth being?
The truth being that they were coming in to destroy the land, to log the forest.
The last blockade, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, resulted in you going to jail.
Yes.
How long did you spend in jail?
I was in jail for 1 month.
Solitary confinement.
In solitary confinement.
Claire says the dangers extend beyond Sarawak's borders to others speaking out against Taib.
Have you ever felt concerned for your safety?
Yes, I've often been warned that I'm getting between some very rich people and their money, and that's not a very clever place to put yourself.
This legal letter to Claire from a lawyer for a Taib family member claims she received funding from wealthy entities that oppose the chief minister in upcoming elections. And a letter to 16 by 9 from lawyers for a Taib family member says Claire and Lukas have a declared political interest and they are running a political campaign against the current Sarawak government. Claire told 16 by 9 she has received no money from Malaysian politicians and that her donors are all non-politically motivated Europeans. Fears of recrimination aren't stopping Claire, Lukas, and others from campaigning to end this before there is nothing left to save. One of those others is this man, world-famous anthropologist Wade Davis.
You ask yourself, after countless millions, indeed probably billions of dollars worth of timber have been extracted to feed the ships that, you know, hang light on the horizon in the South China Sea, ready to fill their holds with raw logs ripped from the heart of one of the richest forests on Earth. What have the people gained from that? Squalor.
He says cut down those trees and you lose not just the forest, but you obliterate a unique people and their way of life. Ian Mackenzie is a Canadian anthropologist. He's made it his life's work to document the Penan people.
We are losing something. Humanity is losing something every time one of its unique cultures winks out. We are losing a valuable source of data about human possibility.
Back in London, Claire is on a mission to stop that extinction, and this is how she's doing it. A paper trail, she says, exposes millions made by that timber trade.
I have painstakingly researched what I can of many of these contracts, and I have been able to prove how lands, contracts have gone straight to his family and how they've profited.
And some of those profits, according to Claire, are winding up in Canada.
Next on 16 by 9. Is there a Canadian connection?
This money has gone from Sarawak in the early 1980s to Canada.
To this rainforest being destroyed?
A section of this tropical rainforest the size of England has been cut down, sold as timber, and palm oil plantations built in its place. The rainforest is in the Malaysian state of Sarawak. Some are pointing at the state's chief minister as the man behind the destruction. But in this YouTube video on Chief Minister Abdul Taib Mahmud's official website, he says logging in Sarawak is not an environmental disaster at all.
We get an outsider to check the practice which we have established as a good civic culture practice, good logging practices.
And Taib says the plantations going up aren't bad for the environment, but in fact, a way to make use of otherwise undeveloped land.
The palm oil is very much needed to spread out the benefit of development to an area which would otherwise be, in fact, undeveloped.
One thing is not in question. Timber is a multi-million-dollar industry in Sarawak, Malaysia. Claire Rucastle-Brown and Lukas Straumann have dug up documents to show who's profiting from the destruction. And they say the money trail leads back to Abdul Taib Mahmud.
He has the political control, he has the economic control, he controls the media. All that allows him to exploit that system without any limits through his assets that have left the system and are now in foreign countries.
One of those countries, they say, is Canada.
It has been possible for me, sitting in London, to go through all the company records online and to trace how this money has gone from Sarawak in the early 1980s to Canada.
16 by 9 followed that trail. This is what we discovered. In 1983, a $3 million investment in real estate in Ottawa by Taib's 23-year-old daughter, Jamila Taib, attending school in Canada at the time. We asked to speak to the Chief Minister, but were told he was traveling and unavailable. The Chief Minister has been known to explain his policies in video online. And on this YouTube video, Taib admits to giving his daughter a nest egg about 30 years ago.
I was resigning from federal government. I got gratuity. I put that, okay, all for her. I give some money to her.
Jamila started this company, Sacto Development Corporation, with her uncle, Taib Mahmood, who at the time was involved in timber shipping in Sarawak. They bought a strip mall in Ottawa, tore it down, and built this. Sacto now owns 6 commercial buildings in Ottawa with an estimated value of more than $100 million. In a letter to 16 by 9, Jamila's lawyers say at no stage did her father have economic benefit from or any direction of the business, directly or indirectly. On this YouTube video posted on his official political site, Jamila's father chalks up his daughter's financial success to good business sense.
If you got talents, you got some money, you can really build good business. Over 30 years, anybody can get rich if you have something up there.
But Lukas says Jamila's involvement goes back the other way too.
This is a list we established of 251 companies in Malaysia and more than 70 companies worldwide. This is an excerpt of that list for Jamila Taib. So she's a director in 8 Canadian companies and more than 60 Malaysian companies. 63 to be exact.
And some of those 63 companies in Malaysia are involved in development. Lukas says he wants Taib's close circle of friends and relatives who he says profit from Malaysian deforestation, including Jamila and her husband Sean Murray, held accountable.
We are now laying a focus on the international campaign and on Taib's foreign helpers, like his Canadian son-in-law, who has assisted the Taib family tremendously to place their assets in various countries.
16 by 9 received this letter from Jamila's lawyer saying Jamila Murray has some passive investments in Malaysia, but Sacto and Sacti and Sean Murray do not. The letter goes on to deny any of that money has been used to fund Sacto projects in Canada or Sacti in the US. Claire took us on a tour to see just a few of the properties owned in London by Ridgeford Properties, where Jamila's husband, Sean Murray, is the chairman.
Even in this recession, these sorts of areas in London are cast iron protected. You know, there's always a demand to get space in these areas.
Back in Canada, the Ontario government has settled into Sacto buildings. 11 Ontario ministries are here, in the first building built and owned by Sacto. We wanted to find out how much the government and taxpayers are spending renting office space from Sacto. So we asked Infrastructure Ontario spokesman Bill Moore.
The gross rent in Preston Square for the 11 ministries that are co-located is approximately $4.9 million a year.
We requested an on-camera interview with Jamila Taib Murray and her husband Sean to respond to allegations that their investments are tied to the timber industry and the destruction of the rainforest in Sarawak. They turned down our request, providing a written response instead, saying allegations about their connection to the destruction of the rainforest are false. My wife and I have various business interests, and our affairs are duly open to the scrutiny of the relevant authorities. Jamila and I find these statements about ourselves and our business false, highly defamatory, and very damaging. Claire says it defies logic that Sacto investments in Canada aren't linked back to the man destroying the rainforest in Sarawak.
So you're saying Daddy's the piggy bank here?
Well, everyone I know who's worked for Taib family companies not only say that Daddy's the piggy bank, they say that Daddy's the godfather.
And this man, who says he had to flee his country, says it's time for the international community to shine a light on the Taib family tree.
If they have gotten their money in the right way, they would not be shy. They would not want to live in the shadow. When you go into the rainforest, you shine your torchlight on the floor, on the forest floor, all the insects will run away. And so For Taib and the family, for Jamila, if you shine the media on them, they will all run away because they are scared of the light.
And until it's safe to go back to his rainforest, home is but a memory.
Looking back, I would say it was idyllic for us. You cannot imagine that kind of lifestyle.
Wonderful.
Beautiful, I would say, and one that I cannot go back to anymore.
For Wade Davis, what is happening in Sarawak is nothing short of criminal.
So much for their loyalty to Sarawak. They were just, from the start, rapists. The fact that they've taken the proceeds of their enterprises and invested them in the Americas tells you how much they were committed to their own people.
Next on 16 by 9, the incredible adventures of Canada's Rocket Man.
Commanding a spaceship. It is a dream come true for me.
It's on an unprecedented scale. The effect on the peoples there was profound and remains so.
Without any question, the most egregious deforestation on Earth.
This is Claire Rucastle Brown. She's been fighting the deforestation, and the man, she says, is behind the destruction.
The plans that the Chief Minister Taib Mahmood has for that area is to continue with that devastation and to turn the whole area into a vast palm oil plantation, which will just cement the disaster.
Here's Carolyn Jarvis.
The Malaysian state of Sarawak is touted in tourism ads as paradise. But its lush tropical rainforest is disappearing at an astonishing rate. The man some people blame for the destruction is the state's chief minister, who's also accused of lining his pockets with the profits of that deforestation. Now, some allege his money has made its way into Canada. The connection? His daughter, who lives in Ottawa and heads up
America.
That rainforest is here in Sarawak, Malaysia's largest state. But it's disappearing, being chopped down for profit.
What has happened in Sarawak and in Borneo is a catastrophe, an environmental and human catastrophe. The entire forest in that country has been mowed down.
The liquidation of tropical forest.
And according to Claire, Sarawak's chief minister is lining his pockets with money from the felled forest.
He's a kleptocrat, I think is the best way to describe him. That means he's somebody that has used his power to rob his people and to take as much money as he can from the state, which he has control over.
Claire says Taib isn't the only one getting rich. She's been tracking the proceeds from the timber industry.
I have been able to see that most of the companies that have received the lands have been companies owned
by a lucrative real estate firm. Sean O'Shea investigates the alleged money trail between a Malaysian father, his Canadian daughter, and their family trees.
This is one of the world's most important rainforests.
A single square mile of forest in Sarawak, contains more biodiversity than all of North America.